Shush. Ships or Shipsy? Only you can decide. Find out more at shipz or z.com. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Thoughts and Coffee today. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the host and founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the CEO of Ships. I'm just going to do a bit of an apology right up front because we have some ice and some snow outside. So every time somebody is driving past or walking past, my dogs might bark. So you might get an appearance from my dogs this morning. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a great week. Let's kick this off and just let you know a little bit more about what is happening on Let's Talk Supply Chain this week. So our newest episode is with CMOS, and we're talking about engineering the future through the power of people. This is a really great episode because we talk about contingent workforce, and CMOS is doing some amazing things in regards to finding contingent workforce. They've done some unique ways during COVID to find the workforce, including some drive-throughs. So you can actually drive through and find a job with CMOS. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So if you haven't gone to check out that episode, go and check it out. It's episode 160, wherever you subscribe to the Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast. Or if you're going to letstalksupplychain.com, go to podcast right over here, the podcast. And well, actually, I should probably do that on the page. Right here, go to podcast. We also have a category filter right here. So you can actually filter all of our episodes and search for what you want to listen to by category. And we've got lots of episodes there for you as well. Again, we've got the final episode in our Not Just Nuts and Bolts series with Fastenal. That's been going on all the month of November. We have 3 episodes so far. Innovation at Work was the first one. Bring Us Your Problems was the second. Powered by Proximity. And then Thursday afternoon, we've got number 4. So super excited to be bringing that to you today or this week. And then we also had live streams last week. So last week we went live with Blue Jay's Solution, talking about the next generation, the gaps in our tribal knowledge, when our tribal knowledge is leaving, how do we capture that, and so much more. And then on Thursday, we celebrated Women Entrepreneurship Day with EDC. And we talked with some women entrepreneurs, what it was like to export, the challenges that they've been through, the obstacles that they've overcome, and why it's important that we take a look as female founders at exporting and expanding our horizons and expanding where our customer base is. So go and check that out. Those are both on the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page. We're also going to be re-promoting that this week as well. So without further ado, Madison is joining us today. And I can't wait to just dive in with you, Madison. Hello and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee.
Hello. I don't know why I'm nervous, but I just feel like I'm still going through my awkward phase. Like, I don't know. I'm just nervous. But hey.
Oh, I get nervous too. I mean, I do this all the time and I get a little bit nervous too. So don't even worry about that. Why don't you introduce yourself for everybody who doesn't know who you are? I mean, I know you through various different ways. I'm so glad you came into my life. I think your posts are uplifting, they're funny, they're true. And so I'm just excited to have you here today.
And I'm excited to be here. You've been a blessing to my life as well. Oh my goodness. For those that don't know, I'm Madison Mobley. I'm currently a senior account executive at Fair Market. We're the intelligent sourcing platform that automates the way you buy stuff, and it doesn't matter what the stuff is. And I've been in the procurement space since the end of March. So kind of new to the neighborhood, but I'm, using my outside voice. I'll just put it like that.
I love it. And you're learning so much. I mean, you dove right into procurement and you are contributing to the community in so many amazing ways. So I think kudos to you. I think you're doing some SIG courses as well. Let's give a shout out for that.
Yeah, I figured I might as well with the pandemic going on. There's not really much else to do. I'm not one of those people with a super colorful social life, so it's like let's learn some things. So yeah, it's been fun.
Well, how do you have a super social life in COVID anyways? I mean, let's just be honest.
Right, you don't. And so the introverts of the world unite because I'm actually, all things considered, I'm very much enjoying my 2020, all things considered. So,
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to give a shout out to those on my personal LinkedIn page. Dan Deegan, I am going to see you at 11 a.m. Eastern because we are going live then as well. And India says hello. Michael Cadio says good morning, ladies, all the way from Procurement Foundry. I mean,
hey, Mike.
And I don't know what you saw, if you saw that Davin said. He said, good morning, Madison. She's hilarious. What you see is what you get with Madison. So
that is true. And my parents are still working with me on a filter. We're working on it. I don't know how we're doing, but we're working on it.
So. Well, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but you go into a little bit more depth in the blended episode that you were a part of as to some of that as well. We've got Chris Dietrich here as well. Hello, Chris. Good morning. All right, let's get to the question of the week. So every Wednesday morning, we do a question of the week on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And so we're going to do a little bit of an early start, but we want the rest of you to go to our page tomorrow morning and answer this question of the week because we really want to hear from you. So the question is, if you could change one thing in supply chain for 2021, what would that be? Madison, over to you.
Oh, I'm going first. Okay. So I don't know that I would change something, although I'm a big fan of what we call the Internet of Things. And so for those who aren't familiar or IoT enthusiasts, think of, a collection of interconnected devices that monitor, report, send, and exchange data. And so for me, I would love us to continue accelerating the path to all things IoT because it's going to continue to transform how we improve overall efficiency, reduce waste, monitor resources, improve labor management, right? And so that's what I would say. And that comes with some tech adoption for sure, but the path to IoT, let's continue to pick up the pace.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, that is really the pathway to all of the changes that I think that we want to be making, especially in sustainability. And, right. That part of what we're doing in supply chain is just going to grow and grow and grow and grow. I think for me, for 2021, I would like to get back to in-person conferences, but I think that that's not going to be until 2022. I mean, that would be a nice change, I think, for everybody. I've been hearing way too much about people getting tired of online meetings. Zoom fatigue is totally a thing, webinar fatigue, all of that kind of stuff. But I also think that the digital, conference event space is just going to also get bigger and better because we've had a lot of time this year to really get it right.
We have. And on the one hand, it's exciting because I think digital conferences are going to be a thing that stays. Yeah. But I agree with you. I mean, I know I've been in this pandemic or in quarantine too long because I'm very much an introvert, and I am very much okay seeing y'all over there. But I'm counting down the days. Whoever has the first conference, I'm going to be the first one in the door because it doesn't matter who it is. Okay, I will be the first one there. It's gotten to that point, and I never thought I would say that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. So over on my personal page, Joe says, good morning from Dun and Bradstreet. Rajesh says, hello. And Michael Cadio again says, you're killing it. Hello, Michael.
Hey,
Awesome. So let's talk about my thoughts and coffee post. I've got to get that up on the screen because I think this is an important one. I just recently came across this word, which is allyship. It's not really something that I've really heard before 2020. It's really only come up in the last couple of months. It's something that I've been talking to a lot of people about in various different formats. And I think it's something that we're not talking enough about, right? It's not something that we've been talking about live or online or anything like that. It's kind of been something that we've talked about, not behind closed doors, but just in places that we're not live with an audience. And I think it's important. I think it's important for diversity and inclusion. I think it's important behind any of the causes within diversity and inclusion. I think it's important that we talk about it. So that's why I wrote about it on Sunday. I wanted people to really just understand what that word meant. I think that there's some stigma around it. The other word that I just really found out was virtue signaling, and I think we should talk a little bit about that too. So when you saw this post, what did you think about it?
I loved it for a few reasons. Because the main one is that allyship forces us to look beneath the surface of what we think we know about people. It's not enough to say, and I'm Black, so I'm going to use Black examples. But you hear a lot, I'm an ally because I'm friends with Madison. No, that actually doesn't make you an ally if you're not also seeking to grow a depth of understanding of my experience and the things that I go through as part of the Black experience. Same thing goes for those who have friends or family members that are in the LGBTQIA plus community. It's one thing to say I'm an ally, but do we understand the distinct differences between each letter of the acronym and the plus? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's the level that we need to start thinking about allyship on. It's continuous education, but it's also taking very firm steps to advocate and demonstrate that you're showing up for someone. It's all of that working together all the time. It's not a moment in time decision. I'm going to be an ally today. No, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, going back to the question of the week, I think this is where I would like to see more change. We talk about diversity and inclusion being a checkbox, or we can talk about diversity and inclusion being, part of this allyship, being a mentor, amplifying voices, lending your voice to back someone up with your voice. So in this, post, I really did break it down as to what allyship really means and how your actions can really help rather than just the words and the check boxes. And, and I think the reason why I wanted to do that was really to help people understand what actually that means and what actions you can take, because I think some people have, or most people have, very good intentions. And you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And you can't do better until you know. And so that's why I wanted to just bring it to life and talk about it. And so some of the things about allyship: amplify, help bring ideas to light, give credit where credit is due. And that's for anybody. Right? That is for anybody. And I think too many times other people take credit for other people's, what they've done well. And that needs to stop. Lend your voice, back someone up with your voice. Listen, validate, and create a trusted, safe space to be heard. That one is huge. Everybody wants a safe space to be able to be heard, be able to talk about their perspectives and what they're going through and their stories and how it's impacted them. So be that space for somebody. Inform yourself, like you said, learn the history and stay up to date with what is happening. I mean, if you're able to have a conversation with somebody who's going through something, and it's because you've stayed up to date and you understand what's happened in the past, your conversation shifts and you can have a much more impactful conversation. Mentorship, advocate and affect change, be an upstander. So report discriminatory behavior, call out and educate. I think one of the other things that we do need to talk more about, and I think maybe we'll talk about this more on Thoughts and Coffee on another episode, but how to call out positively, not negatively. Right. I think that's a really, really big one, because we want people to call out and educate, but there's a way to be able to do that to not create conflict. And that's going to be something that we're all going to have to work on, I think. And then show up where it counts. Use your own privilege to lift up voices, but be careful of virtue signaling. So maybe we can talk a little bit about virtue signaling. Do you know much about that concept? I only really just learned about it, and I'm just wondering if you can shed some light on that.
The first time I saw that exact phrase was when you mentioned it. Oh. Yeah. So I love learning new things, because usually I've at least seen it one time when it comes to most things. But no, let's talk about it and what it should mean.
So I just looked up the definition. Virtue signaling, the action or practice of publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue.
Okay, so where I'm from, we call it perpetrating.
Okay.
And putting up a front. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times, in my observation, what folks post, it's easy to post your highlights and the things that you're doing well and the times that you're giving back or helping someone. But oftentimes we know those same people in real life. I care more about what we're uniquely doing in real life. And so for me, for me, it's virtue signaling if I know that in real life the story is different, but I don't mind also seeing people talk about the good things they're doing. I just think it's a fine line.
Yeah. One of the examples that I brought up just here says self-righteously lecturing people.
Okay.
I think that we've got to get away from that as well. And that goes back to my point about calling it out, right? It's not about, it's about calling them out the right way so that we can have a conversation about it and there can be some education around it so we can do better.
Okay.
Right. And it also says making a show of praising a cause. So it also depends on what your intentions are. Are you looking to potentially get more followers because you're backing a cause, or do you actually really believe in that cause and you're really putting it out there because you want to see change? And is it just words, or are you backing up your words with actual action?
That resonates. And for me, when I see posts like that online, the first thing that I go do is carve out time to double click on all of the things that particular person is also doing. Because you'd imagine, if you're truly behind a cause or a thing, there should be some other content I could find to prove that you're kind of walking the walk and talking the talk. If I see that it's just a moment in time, which is usually easy to find out, then I make a determination.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to get into our supply chain topics. But before we do that, I want to do some shout outs over on my personal LinkedIn. Demo has joined us from Panama. Helly says, good morning. We've also got Marina here. I think this is a super special and powerful concept. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for saying that, because, we want to be able to educate. We want to be able to talk about these things authentically. And I think that it's important for all professionals, not just in supply chain, but professionals in general. Rhonda says, I'm very fortunate in my role to have the opportunity to do this every day as the wellness and fitness director while working with my team. And also says that this is a very, very important topic right now. So thank you to everybody over on my personal LinkedIn. Let's get to some supply chain topics. All right. So where are we at? We are at an article about Supreme. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. I don't know if you know the brand, but Supreme. They started out, this is a great success story. So they started out with one store in New York, and they opened it up as a skate shop that sold custom t-shirts. And then what they did was they took a look at where their customer base was, and they found most of their customer base in Japan, of all places. And so they ended up exporting and opening 3 stores in Japan. But even while they were exporting, they kept their manufacturing in North America. So instead of mass manufacturing in China, the brand was committed to producing small but high quality runs of clothing, which also brings into light, obviously, the sustainability and what people are looking to do within the retail realm to be able to help with that as well. They've recently been acquired for a lot of money by a very, very big brand. What did you think of this article? I know you were super excited to talk about this, so let's do that.
Oh, I have a passion for fashion. So when I saw this, my eyes got so wide for a few reasons. One, kudos to Supreme for a wildly successful brand story.
Mm-hmm.
They were smart, I think, to not only recognize that they had a huge consumer base in Japan. I think now they've got 6 stores there. Japan has always been on the cutting edge of fashion, as long as I can remember. And to be purchased by VF Corp, so they also own Vans and North Face.
Mm-hmm.
I think what makes me nervous is, are we going to end up seeing Supreme in the Macy's of the world? Because I think what made them so sticky is the fact that they did do limited runs. They created this sense of exclusivity while also making you feel like you had a chance at getting some of their latest releases. And then, of course, they did collaborations with Nikes of the world. I'm interested to see how this acquisition plays out in the stores specifically, because they're not the same as a Vans or a North Face. They've always had this clubhouse feel to what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and also how their manufacturing might change, right? I mean, are they going to bring it into the fold as to what they're doing with Timberland, North Face, Vans, etc., or are they going to continue to do those small runs and think about it from, that sustainability standpoint and let them keep that brand? And so I think it's one to watch. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the manufacturing and how the brand or maybe the company does change from this acquisition. So yeah. So the next, well, it's not really an article. What I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about our diversity and inclusion series called Blended. Madison was on episode 2, which we launched last week. It's called Story of My Life. I think it's important that we talk about this series because it's not only important for supply chain and supply chain professionals. Diversity and inclusion in the workplace is important across all industries. And what I'm finding surprising is I just recorded another episode last night, and I'm getting voices from all over the world. Last night we had Singapore, Australia, India, and Mexico all on the recording. And last night we talked about gender equality, and that one's going to be coming out in December. But I think what's important and what's super surprising is the fact that everybody is being authentic in telling their stories. I had a couple of people yesterday actually talk about how they felt in a moment and how they had to check themselves so that we do have more women supporting women instead of women against women. What was your experience about being on Blended, and why do you think it's so important for the industry right now?
It was refreshing. That's the word I'll use, because I think work life has become so commoditized. You go in, you do your job, you leave, which we should be doing. So I'm not advocating that folks just stop doing their jobs. But I think what has not as much been a trend is truly getting to know the people that we work with and where we come from and why we operate the way that we do. And so this project in particular allowed everyone to pull back the curtains, so to speak, and gain a very crisp understanding of who everyone is. And all of that contributes to a more colorful workplace at the end of the day, one where you're truly driving meaningful change and not just, change for the sake of checking a box kind of change.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because so many people have reached out and said how much they learn from these episodes. And just the episode that you were a part of, I mean, we called it Story of My Life. And the reason why we did that, I wanted to talk about stories of what has happened in your life, what has happened in your career journey, what that's looked like, and what the impact was in your life and to your career and maybe to the trajectory. And the reason for that is I think that until we really understand what people have gone through in their lives and their careers and truly understand what the impact is, and it could have just been, I mean, Claudia, she mentioned just one sentence. I think somebody said one sentence to her, and it impacted and changed so much. And then a couple of years later, somebody came back and apologized for it. But I think unless we really hear it from the source, we don't really understand the impact of our words and our actions.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And these conversations help grow empathy as well.
Yes.
Because if you don't truly have a front seat frame of reference into how someone grew up, how they came to be, their becoming of age story, then it's very easy to be dismissive or privileged in the way that you engage with a particular person. So empathy is probably the primary thing that I think is lacking in some of our workplaces. And you only grow that and cultivate that by having very frank stories, emphasis on the frank. This is not tiptoeing around people. I think we have to grow past that point.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And even last night, I had Henrik, who does a lot of research on gender equality, on the episode last night, sharing some data, which was super, super amazing. And I can't wait to share that with you guys. I think it's going to be released December 16th. Okay. So stay tuned for that. We've got a couple more minutes, and I want to talk about, I mean, it's Thanksgiving week for you guys in the States. Well, I want to talk about, I found this article this morning, how the pandemic shook up this year's turkey market. And I thought it was incredible because 40 million turkeys are consumed during Thanksgiving. And what they're talking about is how the pandemic has disrupted their supply and how people not getting together in large groups have actually resulted in a demand for smaller turkeys, which they actually haven't been able to supply in large numbers to consumers. And then they also talked about how COVID nearly shut down turkey production, which meant that we almost didn't have turkey for Thanksgiving. And so I just wanted to let everybody know, when you're eating your turkey this week, feel blessed because they were able to push through supply, demand, and put pressure on their supply chains to get that turkey to you.
Listen, so I'm vegan, y'all. So this news doesn't at all bother me, but I do sympathize with those of you who might not be able to get your small turkey this season. And I hadn't seen this article, Sarah, until you put it up, but I'm from Texas, for those of y'all that don't know or can't pick up by my countryness. Greenberg Turkey, for anyone who has not heard of them, is based in Tyler, Texas, which is actually where my dad's from. It's a town in East Texas. They had a fire this year that forced them to shut down turkey production for this season. So Texas is up in arms right now. And that's independent of this particular article, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that the turkey market's in shambles right now. Not a bit.
I know. We thought it was just toilet paper. Well, guys, you almost didn't have turkey on your Thanksgiving table. Well, for everybody who is celebrating Thanksgiving, we hope that you have an amazing week and a couple of days sitting down, eating some food, watching some football, spending time with some family. I know that you might not be able to be with everybody that you want to be with this year, but take a moment and enjoy the time with the family that you are able to get together with. Thank you so much, Madison, for joining us today. I think this was great. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we're going to have all of the articles in the comments. Stay tuned. Next week, Audrey Ross is going to be back with me co-hosting Thoughts and Coffee next week with all of our Thoughts and Coffee posts, our question of the week, and all of our supply chain topics. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us.